Hi, my name is Mari Stewart, and I'm the author of Unhomed. So I'm going to tell you a story today of why we carve pumpkins on All Hallows Eve. This is a very old story. It was brought to the mountains of Appalachia, where I'm from, among the dusty memories of the Irish and the Scottish who settled the area. And it was an old tale, even before they arrived. Now, a famous storyteller told me this tale, and I was very fortunate to be able to learn the story from Mr. Ray Hicks. So I'm going to tell it as he told it, with some of my twists. One day, a long time ago, there lived a boy named Jack. He was a rascal. He never meant any harm to anybody, but he had a knack for finding trouble. Well, on this particular day, about the end of October, Jack wasn't looking for any trouble. He was just enjoying the day. Indeed, he was on a ramble up and down the county, just enjoying the colors of the fall and breathing in that crisp air. But he heard a sound up ahead of him, and he wondered, as his ears pricked up, and he listened, and he could swear he heard somebody crying. Well, it was too nice a day to think of somebody crying, so he decided to go find out what was the matter. When he found the person who was sniffling and all teary-eyed, he realized she was perhaps the prettiest girl he'd ever seen. "Well, why are you crying, girl?" Jack asked. She looked up to him with her sky blue eyes and said, as she pointed to the tree next to her, "Look up there. Isn't that just the most perfectest apple?" And Jack looked up the tree, and there was indeed the most perfect apple he had ever seen. And he gave a low whistle in appreciation for the perfection of this apple. And he said, "You're right. But why are you crying?" Well, the girl sniffed and she dried her eyes and she says, "I can't reach it. Though I have tried and tried, I cannot reach that apple." Now, the words were out of his mouth before Jack even realized that he was halfway up the tree. And he said, "I'll get it for you." So up and up he climbed, but he could never reach the apple when it hung out on a branch at the very tip top of the tree. Well, Jack tried again and again and again, but he never could get near the apple. It was getting late, and in the evening time, rolling around, that apple glowed brighter and it looked more perfect than it ever had before. And Jack stood on the ground looking up at it in vain. And he said, "Dang it, I bet the devil himself couldn't get that apple." Now Jack knew better than to do such a thing, but done was done, and no sooner had the words fallen out of his mouth than poof! Up jumped the devil himself. Now there stood the old Nick, with a pair of horns on his head and a long forked tail. And the devil just grinned at Jack. "You don't think I can get that apple? Well, what are you gonna bet?" Now, Jack knew how deals with the devil went, but here he was stuck with the presence of Satan himself, until some bargain between them was struck. So Jack offered everything he could think of: his cow, his pocket knife, maybe the apple itself. And Beelzebub turned everyone down, and finally Jack said, as the bells started tolling midnight, "Well, the only other thing I have is my soul. Done!" And the devil clapped his hands in a bargain. "I'll go up and throw down the apple," said the devil. "And when you get back down, I'll go with you to hell," said Jack. The devil couldn't believe his luck. So easy a soul for such a simple task? And as the bell church was nearing the last chimes of midnight, the devil called down from the very tip top of that tree, "Here she comes!" And he dropped down the apple. Now Jack caught it and lickety-split pulled out his pocket knife. But he didn't spare another thought for the apple, but instead he carved a great big, tall and wide cross into the trunk of the tree. And the devil, who had been climbing down, howled his rage to the blue moon overhead. Jack smiled as he handed the apple to the pretty young thing. She thanked him, and with a good night, she went along her way. Now the devil was fussing and cussing a blue streak, so Jack wished him a good night, and he went on his way. Every once in a while, Jack would visit the devil now and again to see if he was ready to make another bargain with him. Only after the devil promised that he would not take Jack's soul did Jack let him loose by carving a big old X over the cross. The devil hissed and vanished in a puff of smoke. Well, Jack had many more adventures, but in the end, even Jack died. And he went up to the pearly gates, and St. Peter looked down his long nose and said, "Go away, you rascal. We don't want your foolishness." "But, sir, I never meant no harm." "Go away, I tell you. Come back when I call." And poof! Just like that, Jack found himself in front of the fiery gaze of hell. Now, Jack wasn't too keen about being sent to hell, so he sat down outside the gate to have himself a think. And who should see him there but the king of hell himself? And Jack said, "I really don't like to ask, but will you let me in?" And the devil grinned. "Oh no. We have a bargain, you and me. I promised I wouldn't take you, and I keep my promises." "But what am I to do? It's all dark and cold out here." "Here," said the devil, as he tossed Jack a glowing coal from the very bottom of hell. Jack picked up the coal and hollowed out a turnip so he could carry it as a lantern. And away he went, mournful and mighty low. And he wanders to this day with the light from that glowing coal leading him on. Sometimes, on a late October night, under a full moon, you can hear him whistling, a low, sad sound, or you might hear his voice on the wind. And that is why, to this day, we carve the jack-o'-lanterns, to let all the lost souls know that they are remembered, and to pass us by with their mischief.